Now let's compare that to Wikipedia. And I'm now creating a new data set, which we call Swiss franc wiki 2. And now I can call the wiki evolution fetcher, and I have to first enter my search term, franc, and now it will go into Wikipedia and basically run the same query as it was running in Condor here. So what I'm entering here, this query, is executed by Condor. So I'm now taking Swiss franc as my page from whom I'm starting to build the link network. And I have the option of either taking the last 250 revisions or any other number, or going back by date to an earlier date. For now, I just take the last 200 edits. What this basically means, if we are in Wikipedia and have our Swiss franc page, then we have here the link to German, the link to French, to Romanish, to Italian, to code, to currency, to legal tender, and so on. And we have the edits. And so here we see in the edit history when certain edits have been made, and those will be shown, those changes, in the movie. So whenever an edit has been made, the movie shows us a change in the link. And so right now we get the last 250 revisions. And we can also collect two types of networks, a static network and a dynamic network. For an explanation of how this works, watch the movie by Ken Ryopel. And we can collect snippets. Snippets means the text in the Wikipedia page up to the table of contents, or we can collect no content, or we can collect all the content. We can also restrict our fetcher to either bidirectional links or to take all the links originating from a page. For the English Wikipedia, it's normally a good idea to restrict the fetcher to bidirectional links. For other language Wikipedias, and Condor supports quite a long list of languages, as they are not as richly linked as the English Wikipedia, not checking that box is normally a better idea. But for now, we only take the bidirectional links, and now it's running and collecting all the data. Now this will take 2 or 3 minutes, and as I'm not going to wait, I will just cancel that query, and I will open the dataset I had prepared before, which is basically the same query, but just finished. And you see here it goes back from November 5th, 2011 to today. And we have 229 pages. And now we load that, and it will be interesting to see how that changes over time. So perhaps as a start, we can look at the movie of how pages that link back to the Swiss franc page have been edited and links have been added. So one of these will be the Swiss franc page, and the other one is, so that's interesting. We have 2 pages here that look very similar, and probably one is the name of the other. Now we can look at how the editing changes, and as we see here, not much does change, so we will just fast forward up to the very end, and then we see here, now we get some new pages. The Australian dollar is linked, the link is edited, and now we will play on, and it's still Not much changes in 2014. Which does not mean that there are no edits. But I have only taken the last 250 edits, starting as of today and then going back and taking the last 250. And considering the recent turbulences around the Swiss currency, we expect a lot of changes, and indeed what we see here is exactly that. So if I single step here, we have the Swiss franc, then we have Swatch, and we have the Australian dollar, and then now we get suddenly an explosion of links. That means that the links to those other pages have been edited very recently, just in the on February 9. And so here we see those changes, and this is how it looks. So we can now also look at the edit history over time, and we see the same thing I was just mentioning, all this huge activity just in the very last few days. Now let's compare that to the euro. I had run a euro query just before. I will open the dataset for the euro, and as we will see, that is even more linked, which is not surprising, as the euro is used in many more countries and is much more discussed than the Swiss franc. And so now we can look at the static queue again, or the dynamic queue. For now, let's first look at the static queue. And as you see here, this is extremely dense in the last 250 edits. If you look at the activity over time, we will see a similar picture. Some edits in January and some edits before, and in between a long period of quiet. And we could look at the movie, or most interestingly, we can now combine the Swiss franc and the euro and then see how they compare with each other. So the euro has 572 actors over the last 250 edits. So a lot of links have been edited. Now let's combine the two. So I take my Swiss franc and my euro wiki, and I combine the two, and I call them euro Swiss franc wiki. And as soon as it is merged, I can open it, and then we will see how the Wikipedians have edited the pages about Swiss franc and euro. So I have to open the dataset first. 756 actors. And now I can, for example, just look at the movie and see how it changes. And I will color it by the original dataset, so I have both. And so there is not much in the beginning. Swiss franc, and here we get some euro activity. Oh, so we had, in the beginning we had euro. No, we had euro. We had Swiss franc. We changed its color. So now we see how they are both not connected yet, but suddenly it will explode. And then we will see how they are influencing each other. So here we get the connection through the Australian dollar from euro and so here we have probably the Swiss franc and currency center. So we can now also look at the betweenness centrality and see what are the key terms around those currencies. It will take a bit of time to calculate. And then when we size by betweenness centrality, we should see those most influential nodes. I will take the static view because the dynamic will take a lot of time to calculate. The static is faster for that. But I have now already calculated my betweenness, so I can keep that. And I will just say size by betweenness. Make that smaller. Should take a bit of time. So this big node here is probably euro or Swiss franc, I would expect. Call by original dataset. So this yellow is probably that's the euro. So the euro is the most central term in that discussion, which is not that terribly surprising. It's by far the most linked term. So this illustrates how to use the wiki fetcher